I have largely avoided discussing Charlie Kirk simply because everyone is talking about him and I don't think I can add anything new to the conversation. Then Introvert Rockstar's video titled Charlie Kirk was dead wrong about black pilots surfaced in my recommendations and I couldn't resist. I'm not a pilot, but I have a lot of interest in aviation and I know the physics of aircraft very well. Certainly better than this knucklehead. At any rate, Introvert Rockstar is going to draw on the facts as he sees them to paint an image of black supremacy in aviation, all the while getting everything wrong. Hello out there. I am trying to get through.
With his powerful brainwaves cradled in the warmth of reasoning, it's time for Johnny Walker Dread to straighten you out on a thing or two. Emanating all the way from exciting Las Vegas, Oklahoma, it's the Johnny Walker Dread Show.
And that's why I think this United story and the DEI story hits so hard, because we've all been in the back of a plane when the turbulence hits or when you're flying through a storm and you're like, I'm so glad I saw the guy with the right stuff and the square jaw get into the cockpit before we took off. And I feel better now thinking about that.
No, I mean, like, you want to go thought crime? Like, I'm sorry. If I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified.
Well, that's the you wouldn't have done that. You wouldn't have. You wouldn't have done that before.
That's not an immediate.
No, you wouldn't have done that before.
That's not who I am. That's not what I believe.
It is the reality the left has created.
And you already know on this channel we hold racist Caucasian people accountable, because if we don't, who will?
You'll also cut video clips short to obliterate the context of white speakers. Here's Charlie explaining what he said.
All right, let me tell you exactly what I said,
Sure,
okay?
thank you.
So this was in response, first and foremost, to United Airlines saying that half of all their new pilots that they're going to hire are going to be women or people of color. Currently, they're 15%.
Okay.
So they want to go from 15% to 50%. A conversation then ensued about how every time affirmative action is employed, standards have to be lowered. There's not a single instance where that does not occur.
Well, you can elevate recruitment to make up the numbers, but it's still going to be difficult to reach 50% without concomitantly lowering standards. It just turns out that lowering standards is the quickest and cheapest way to achieve those numbers, and therefore almost always what happens. So I disagree with Charlie in that lowering standards is the only thing that will work, but he's right in spirit. Lowering standards is typically what happens.
So then I said, boy, if I see a black pilot, I'm now going to wonder, is that individual qualified, or were they selected because of their race? Comma, but that's not who I am, but this makes me think this way. And I stand completely by that statement.
Okay.
Secondly, let me just finish.
Sure, yeah, sorry.
DEI and affirmative action, what it does is it lowers the merit, it lowers the threshold of standards, and increases things that do not matter, such as skin color and ethnic background. So that is what I said.
Okay.
Now, a more important question to ask me is, Charlie, do you believe that black pilots can be qualified? Of course, any individual can be qualified. I want a hiring quota and program that only cares about qualification, not skin color. And thirdly, I would say, why does United Airlines care so much about the color of the pilots that are flying them? Shouldn't they just want the best pilots? When you guys are flying from Vegas to Dallas or Vegas to Chicago, are you going to feel safer or more comfortable when you hit turbulence if you have a diverse pilot, or if you have a cockpit of the most qualified people that are there that have proven that they know how to land and fly planes?
I see nothing racist in his comments at all. Sorry, but anyone who claims those are racist comments is simply looking for racism under every rock and boulder. Or they're stupid and have zero listening comprehension skills. Both. Speaking of such, let's get back to Introvert Rockstar. Oh, before I begin, Charlie wasn't claiming that the FAA was lowering standards. He was talking about the airlines themselves. Airlines don't have to hire everyone that the FAA certifies. Charlie was concerned that United Airlines was going to lower its standards. So get your facts right.
And before we start this video, if you don't like black people, black issues, black talks, get to stepping. Charles Frederick Page was a self-taught inventor born to slavery in 1864 in Pineville, Louisiana, who overcame enormous systematic obstacles to pursue innovation.
So Page's piloting skills are going to negate Charlie Kirk's message, right? Yeah, we'll see.
Despite having no formal education, Page studied science independently and developed a design for a bi-balloon airship, a lighter-than-air flying machine.
A lighter-than-air flying machine. Right, lighter than air. Balloons have been around for a long time. They were used in the Civil War. The race was to see who could develop the first self-propelled flight of a heavier-than-air machine. All Page did was to invent a novel way to propel balloons and control their maneuvering. To be the so-called inventor of the airplane, which is really a misnomer, there were 4 things that you had to satisfy. 1, it had to be heavier than air. 2, it had to be manned. 3, it had to be self-propelled. And 4, it had to work. You actually had to fly the thing. The Wright brothers were the first to do that. They didn't invent the airplane. They were the first to build and fly one.
In 1903, he filed a patent for this invention, just weeks after the Wright brothers filed theirs for a heavier-than-air aircraft.
Right. Heavier than air. That was the big challenge. It had to be heavier than air.
Page's airship patent was officially granted in April 1906, slightly before the Wright brothers' patent. He invested his life savings into building a prototype.
By the way, I don't think that's Page there in the picture, but it is. I really doubt that that thing flew.
Which he attempted to showcase at the 1904 World's Fair, but the model was reportedly lost or stolen en route.
Not en route, en route. So he never flew it. So his invention doesn't count as a first. It wasn't enough to design something that might fly. Plenty of people did that. You had to fly it as a proof of concept. Page never did. It's unfortunate that his model was stolen, but that doesn't erase the fact that he never flew his model. And because it was lighter than air, it wouldn't have counted for much anyway.
A devastating blow that left him disheartened. Make that make sense. And guess what? He was never supported. The media never showed this. Matter of fact, I went to school in Louisiana. He's from Pineville, Louisiana. We never heard about this. All we heard about was the Wright brothers.
That's because Page didn't accomplish shit as far as aviation goes, and the Wright brothers did. Page deserves credit for his inventions, but none of them had any significant impact on aviation, if at all.
We never knew it was a black man that patented all of this before the Wright brothers. But see, you have to realize something. Racist Caucasian people, they have always did little things to hold black people back. Tell me I'm lying. And
well, you're not lying, just deluded. You're racist. We get it. I truly think that you believe Page deserves credit for the airplane. The problem is, he doesn't. And no one who knows anything about aviation would support your argument.
This dude said when he sees a black pilot, he hoped that he's qualified. Well, guess what, Mr. Charlie Kirk, 9 times out of 10, when a black person is overqualified, y'all.
And at this point, you're just pulling claims out of your ass. A black person can be as qualified as anyone else, but to think that they're usually more qualified than anyone else is just horse manure.
Still do little things to hold them back. Y'all still do whatever it takes so black people won't take over. Well, Charlie, you was wrong. Every time I see a black pilot, I'm comfortable.
That's racist.
That was racist.
Yeah, that's racist.
Oh, that is racist.
Because I know they had to be 10 times better than everybody else. When they was in training, they had to be 10 times better. So I feel comfortable when I see a black pilot. Matter of fact, run a tape.
You feel comfortable when flying with a black pilot? How many black pilots have you ever had piloting your plane? And keep in mind, Charlie Kirk's argument was that they not only didn't have to be 10 times better than everyone else, but that DEI programs would allow them to achieve the same certification as others while being less qualified than anyone else. And Charlie was basing his argument on real policy changes by certain airline companies, United, that, in his view, promoted DEI policies, not the FAA. Your claims are based on nothing. You just make the claim that black pilots have to be 10 times better. Where are you getting that?
I know I'm somebody and I have a job to do, and I'm willing to take care of it and do what I have to do to get to the next level.
Meet Joshman Cook. He doesn't look like your typical pilot.
Wait. He doesn't look like your typical pilot? Gee, that sounds racist.
Cook enrolled into flight school 2 years ago, but his journey started long before the cockpit.
I grew up in state custody. I'm a foster kid, so that's just a rundown. And I know they got a lot of kids in the system that's facing the same thing that I went through.
Am I missing something here? What's the story? What's the significance of this? A black dude gets a pilot's license. So what? It's the racist people who are making a big deal out of this, as if they're not expected to be able to do this.
And like I'm always saying, make that make sense. And look, I said this in another video. You can go to any job in America. It's always a black person that taught everybody everything. It's always a black person that trained everybody. It's always a black person on the job that knows everything, with or without a degree, with or without a diploma. They still know everything.
This is just raw black supremacism. More accurately, you will often find trainers at companies who are black. And in many cases, the best trainers are black. But to make it sound as if black people are inherently better at training is just racist. How would it sound if a white person said that about white trainers?
So we can go back to Charles Page, the original. He had no formal education, but he still was the first one to patent everything.
He patented everything. Wow, that's pretty remarkable.
See, they don't want black pilots to take over. So that's why they keep it at 5%. That's why they keep it at 6%, because they know once we learn anything, we transcend everything. I'm going to say that again. Once we learn anything, we transcend everything. Tell me I'm lying.
Well, I don't know if you're lying, but you're wrong. You're a black supremacist who thinks that the color of someone's skin makes them somehow superior to others. That's the very definition of racism.
But I want to go back to what Joshua said in that video earlier. Check this out. I grew up in state custody, a foster kid. I know they got a lot of kids in the system. They're facing the same thing that I went through. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, less than 5% of pilots are black. Cook said he's looking to help increase that number. Make that make sense.
Well, good for him. If he's becoming a pilot to pave the way for other future black pilots, fine, great. But unlike Introvert Rockstar, I don't think it's a momentous event that he became a pilot.
And see, look, when black people take their career seriously and they really passionate about it, they always overqualify.
But if you really want to go down this route of proving racial superiority because Josh Mund Cook became a pilot, then we must ask, why was Josh Mund Cook in the foster care system? He was not being raised by his parents or his grandparents, but by strangers. Why is that?
All right, that is not black excellence.
Doesn't feel good to have this slapped in your face, does it? Then perhaps you shouldn't do it yourself. Joshman becoming a pilot doesn't prove anything, nor does him being raised in the foster care system. But hopefully you see my point. Oh, who am I kidding?
But you have people that think like this dude, and they use those hateful words. And look, they only use hateful words towards black people because they want to have space in your mind. They want you to wake up thinking about them. They want you to go to bed thinking about them. They want you to always think about the negative things they say about you. So that's why they are forced their insecurities on us. That's why you will see Trump got to send the National Guard to these black cities when the crime is already down. He got to send National Guard to these black cities so they can provoke black men and lock them up. And the crime is already down. Make it make sense.
The topic here is DEI and its impact on the qualifications of pilots. And you drag Trump's National Guard program into the fray? I'm not a Trump fan, but I recognize the existence of Trump derangement syndrome.
And look, they chose Charlie Kirk to go to these colleges, to go to these debates, to spread racism. They want that old MAGA, Make America Great Again racism to go from each generation. They want to pass it down. They want to indoctrinate and brainwash these kids, but it didn't work. Tell me I'm lying.
Wait, are you telling me that Charlie Kirk was trying to change the minds of college youth? Oh my gosh. We all know that never happens with the left. Because if there's one thing you know about liberal college professors, they would never try to indoctrinate their students politically. Look, Charlie Kirk had a political worldview that he felt college students needed to hear. So he went to college campuses and spoke. He also devoted ample time to field questions from anyone that wanted to confront him. He challenged students on their views. Anyone that disagreed with him were welcome to engage him in debate. And many students did. That's how it's supposed to be done. Then all of a sudden, someone decided to challenge him by shooting him. And many on the left came out and showed in their reactions that they think killing someone is an acceptable debate tactic. And I can guarantee you that Introvert Rockstar here agrees with them.
Historical barriers and exclusion. For much of aviation history, Black individuals were excluded from flight training programs, military pilot roles, and commercial aviation jobs due to segregation laws, discriminatory policies, and overt racism. During World War II, the Tuskegee Airmen, the first Black military aviators in the U.S., had to fight not only the enemy abroad, but also racism at home. Their existence was a direct response to the belief that Black people were intellectually or emotionally unfit to fly, even after proving themselves in combat.
I don't have any objection to this. They had to fight racism at home, and despite their treatment, fought hard for this country. So far, so good.
They face major barriers transitioning into commercial aviation due to discriminatory hiring practices. Make that make sense. And how ironic, Charlie Kirk never talked about these facts at his debates.
Charlie Kirk never claimed that blacks couldn't be good pilots. That's why. Let's go back.
A more important question to ask me is, Charlie, do you believe that black pilots can be qualified? Of course.
You see, before anyone in the comments section gets too far ahead of themselves, the skill of a pilot comes down to training quality, the amount of training, and most of all, the amount of combat experience. Not race. The best pilots in World War II were German pilots of the Luftwaffe because they flew so many sorties. Erich Hartmann had over 350 kills because he was flying 3 or 4 sorties a day. The greatest military pilot of all was probably Hans Ulrich Rudel, who flew over 2,500 combat missions. Yeah, doing that will get you pretty good. Besides the massive carnage he inflicted on the enemy, I think just surviving 2,500 sorties in a Stuka is impressive enough. That's right, he flew a Stuka. He became an ace in a Stuka. He shot down 9 planes. I mean, the Stuka. In a dogfight, the Stuka was only marginally better than a World War I biplane.
And the cold part is, these people really think they earned something. These people really think they really got it out the mud. But the whole time, they created laws to hold Black people back. They did little sneaky shit to hold Black people back. Tell me I'm lying. And look, it's 2025. Our airmen back then had to fight racism in their own states. They had to go to war and come back home and fight racism in their own goddamn country. And in 2025, you got dudes like this, grown-ass men, having debates on college campuses with kids.
They're college students, adults. This is the upcoming generation of parents, workers, and voters. And they often center far more of their lives around political worldviews than non-students. So they make a natural target for anyone seeking political discourse. And the fact that even the dumbest ones have 10 IQ points on you, well, that's another reason.
He not fighting. He never in the hood. He not talking to single mothers. He not talking to Black fathers. He not talking to anyone in the Black community.
All those people were more than welcome to go wherever he was speaking and challenge him on his views. I think it's more problematic that you equate Black communities with hoods, because that's where all Black families live. If I was Black, I would find that far more offensive than anything Charlie said.
The problem is that he doesn't talk to white people about their problems. He doesn't go to trailer parks.
So Charlie wasn't saying that Blacks can't be good pilots. His concern was whether they were chosen for the job for the right reasons. And once you choose pilots for the wrong reason, it only becomes natural to question their qualifications. Think about the NBA. If the NBA decided to make it a goal that 80% of all players were white, how many would think that the NBA wouldn't have to lower standards for players to accomplish that? And 10 years later, if 80% of all NBA players were white, how many would think that every player earned their spot purely on merit? The difference, of course, is that the NBA is inherently competitive, so any discriminatory practices would be obvious. But when it comes to pilot training, the ill effects would be far harder to notice until a plane crashed. like my video, and subscribe to my channel.